Welcome to the Feisworld podcast, engaging conversations that cross the boundaries between business, art, and the digital world.
Hi there, welcome to the Feisworld podcast. This is your host, Fei Wu. You are now listening to part 2 of my interview with a brilliant young man whose name is George Ko. At age 22, again, so far the youngest guest on my show, George is a pianist, Young Steinway Artist, and an undergrad at Harvard, majoring in music. So in this part of my conversation with George, he starts to talk about the business side of things. After founding 4 startups in just 1.5 years at Harvard, being a freshman and then first half of sophomore year, I figured that George could really share some secret set of skills, the aha moments that contributed to his success, and perhaps inspire other musicians like himself. I was also surprised to find out that George is so young, and someone as young as he is has a clear vision of where his journey is going to take him, or what expectation and hope is. So it is not as simple as just being a musician himself. It is rather a universal message that's going to change music and music education around the world. So how does that happen? During his year off from Harvard, he had the pleasure to conduct a youth orchestra in Orange County, where George is from. He realized that it is not because that classical music is not cool, it's not as good as pop music, or it's too difficult to consume, but instead, the truth is, we never gave it a chance. So he said, if I could somehow, in my life, help bring these programs back, give people a chance, or to just at least open a chapter or the cover of this wonderful book, that would be the ultimate goal of my career. So I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I was simply stunned and reflected so much upon myself, my life, post-producing George's episode. So I really welcome that you listen to this part as well as part 1 of our conversation. Find out more in this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and please keep in mind there is an blog post associated with these 2 recordings, 2 episodes. You can go to my website at feisworld.com, Feisworld. Thank you so much for being my audience. Without further ado, please welcome George Ko. We're now at Harvard University, and the name of the building is?
Oh, so this is temporary Dunster House. I mean, they were in the midst of a remodel, so we're in the Inn at Harvard, which has been converted into a dorm for this year.
Yeah, and this is a piano practice room we're in right now, and you mentioned that you practice about 6 hours a day?
If I can.
3 to 6.
3 to 6, at least 3. I mean, ideally, if you can practice 8 hours, that would be great. I mean, some concert pianists claim you can't practice more than 6 or 4, but for me, I need 8.
No, absolutely. I think this is forget about statistics and averages and all that, right? It's really a program tailored to yourself. I was interviewing this fitness guru who's very successful, fitness Sports Illustrated and all that, and his name is Tom Seaborn, and I interviewed him for 2 hours, and he said, you know, he trains every day, 7 days a week, but now when he's not in competition and all that, it's not about performance, it's not for show, it's for his personal benefit. It's an hour a day. He said, but still some experts who say, you're crazy, your muscles need a rest, and he said, no, it's not for me, you know, he feels best.
Different. I mean, you know, there's I know concert pianists who need to practice 2 hours before they perform, or they cancel the concert. I know concert pianists that haven't practiced in 2 weeks. They show up, they play great, and then they have a beer afterwards. I mean, you know, it's I even know some concert pianists who have to drink a shot of vodka before they go on the stage. So
how do you prepare? Yeah. How do you prepare yourself?
See, it's funny is a lot of pianists have these rituals. I have no ritual. I just show up. If I can practice, great. If I don't, that's too bad. I can still eat before I perform. A lot of people don't eat before they perform. I don't really care.
You're a Chinese, you have to eat.
Right. I have to get, my Ding Tai Fung in for the day. I just, go. No, it's kind of a job, You have to show up, you have to perform well, and it doesn't matter. I mean, people are not going to care if you're sick. I remember one time I performed at Carnegie for the Alexander Buono Empire. And I had a fever. Yeah. And, I was very tired. But you go on the stage, people can't know you have a fever, right? Just walk on, smile, play, then afterwards when you're walking back to the, to the green room, you start coughing. But, it's, my belief is it's a job, and you should treat it with some discipline. So, okay, you didn't practice, you got paid, still go on the stage.
Yeah, but is it true that when you were playing on that stage, for however many minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, did you feel better, or did you kind of forget or ignore?
I completely forgot. It's a task. I mean, Stanford did a study, and they discovered that the piano, scientifically speaking, so if there are any violinists listening, they know I'm not just saying this because I'm a pianist, but it is mentally the most difficult instrument in the world. It requires the most, neuron firings it demands the most of the brain out of all the instruments. And so you become so focused. I mean, even if you had to sneeze, once you start playing the piano and performance, you never think of sneezing again. I mean, it's that, you have to be that focused. You're constantly thinking, if you're playing a passage, what's the next part? Okay, I'm going to play this next part. Oh, crud, I made a mistake. I'll fix that later. Don't worry about it now. Okay. And, you're listening so intently, and you can hear, I always hear some lady or some man in the audience opening a candy wrapper. It happens all the time.
Do you hear that? Or
you hear it. I mean, I was playing, what was I playing? I was playing, and right here. I mean, you hear it. I mean, there's nothing, even if you're playing, fast patches, just... I mean, you can hear it. I mean, because your job as a performer is to listen, right? When you're playing concerto, you have to, you have to listen to the orchestra, so you're listening the whole time. You hear people coughing. I've heard people snoring.
Falling asleep.
I used to think, oh man, if someone fell asleep, I must have played badly. But then Yo-Yo Ma told me he played one time, his dad slept the whole time. So I said, hey, if Yo-Yo Ma dads sleep all the time, then it's okay.
It's okay for them.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh my goodness, this is hilarious. I don't want to make you late for anything. Do you happen to have another 5-10 minutes to
chat?
Sure. Yeah, because I want to get to the business side of things as well. I think you have a very unique set of skills. That sounds like that movie Taken. I'm not sure if you saw it. It's like the third one.
You don't know who I am. You do not know where I am. But I have a very specific set of skills, and I will find you, and I will kill you. Yeah, it's like
movie moment.
Yes, it's like Liam Neeson.
Yeah, exactly. You have a very... we'll get to that. No, we really have to get to it. But let me... 2 questions before let you go on your day, your practice. I'm sure we are cutting into your practice for sure. Right. It's all right. Let me take a break. I've always loved music my whole life. And I studied how to play the keyboard when I was 7 or 8. I remember I was taking lessons for about 2 years because a neighbor's son happened to be playing the piano. And I didn't really stick with it, but I enjoyed it because my parents didn't push me. Then I started playing alto sax when I was in high school at Freiburg Academy. We had a great music teacher. I had zero experience. I was a senior, but I just wanted to play, and there was not an opportunity in Beijing to play alto sax. And
oh, that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, because jazz music still probably isn't as popular. It's more popular now, and I loved it. I loved practicing. But I'm looking at you is because I still practice for those 8 to 9 months, choose to literally go to the music hall, just be on my own, while all the other kids were out dating, kissing, and all that. I didn't do any of that. I just wanted to practice, and that definitely touched the music teacher. He walked in one day, he was so surprised late at night. One thing I always struggled with, I guess as a result, I didn't become a better musician. There's still a chance, is I did not memorize the music itself. It was, again, I was not, born and raised as a musician. And now I'm looking at a stack of paper here in front of me. There's got to be like 50, 100 pages of music for one song.
Oh no! This is a collection. I didn't bring my concerto, but that's about 100 pages, and so.
You memorize the music, and I noticed this through recording. We're talking, and you're playing. So, I don't even know how to frame that question, to be honest. 100 pages. I know some parts repeat, but for the most part, they're different.
Well, if you think about it from a maths point of view, it's possible to memorize because, say for example, one piece of music. The etude I always play is Chopin's Etude, Opus 10, number 1, which starts as. It's it seems like it's not so bad right now, but that took 3 years. It's because the way Chopin wrote this etude is it stretches and collapses your hand, and it's one of the most awkward etudes. And some people can't even play it. A very famous story is Rubinstein was testing out pianos in Germany, and he was playing this etude on one of the pianos, and he found out a reporter was recording, and he requested that reporter to delete the recording because he didn't want people to hear that he was playing that piece. It's a very hard piece. So some people can do it. I've seen 12-year-olds play it, but then there's some people who never touch the piece in their lives. So when you work that hard on a piece, you memorize it because of the muscle memory in your fingers by looking at the score so many times. Like if I'm thinking of, let's say, a Chopin piece I'm working on the 6th page, it will be, you just know because you've looked at the score so many times. So memorization is inevitable because of, people don't, what might be fun for the podcast is people don't know how pianists practice. And so, for example, if I play this one passage, to just play that little short thing, I would have to do all these different dotted rhythm practices, like, or just do the top parts of my fingers, or just the left hand. So, there's so much you have to do just for 4 measures of music. That could be anywhere from 2 to 20 hours of work.
Wow.
And so when you put all of that time together, you're able to memorize a piece because you spent, a good 1 month to 2 years on it.
That reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell's Outlier, 10,000 hours. What do you think of 10,000 hours, and how do you even think about it in terms of practice hours? I did during my year off when I started because I did the math. Because I did math. I took, linear algebra and differential equations at Harvard. So I did too.
Oh, okay. Math, I stopped after that because the next math class I took, the average IQ was 150, and I said goodbye. But I did the math, and up until my year off, I only practiced almost 3,000 hours. I was not even close. And so I started looking at pianists who didn't have the luxury at that time. And mind you, actually, the real number of hours of concert pianists that have practiced to reach the level like, say, Lang Lang is more like 19 to 25,000 hours. Mm-hmm. So Malcolm Gladwell's, I mean, it might work for hockey, but it doesn't work for musicians. And mainly because you have to practice so much that you would ingrain habits into your own body by will. Mm-hmm. And that is something you can't just, I mean, even 10,000 hours is a lot, but I don't think that could do it, even that amount. So I started looking at pianists who practice differently. And there's one pianist in particular, Arkady Volodos. He was an opera singer. And then at 17, he said to his dad, I don't want to be an opera singer anymore. I want to be a pianist. Mm-hmm. And he has the most legendary technique today. Mm-hmm. And so, but he started when he was 17. So how did he practice? Well, he was very efficient. He would never play a piece through when he practiced. He would just play what he needed to work on. Mm-hmm. He would always play Czerny. He would always work on technique. And once something was wrong, he stopped immediately and fix it. And so that's what I did. I tried to change the way I practice.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I've been a martial artist for about 14 years now.
Oh, wow. What's your style?
When I was a kid, it's probably more than 14 years, but when I was in China, I practiced Kung Fu. I was very spoiled.
Which style of Kung Fu?
There's the Young style, and there's some of that these days is intertwined with Tai Chi, but there's the Wu style, there's the Yang style. And honestly, for me, it was a hodgepodge.
It's a hodgepodge?
It wasn't quite official, but for the past... What about you? Sounds like you did too.
Yeah, I studied Qingchen Pai in Sichuan. So the Qingchen Pai is the Taoist version of Tai Chi. Uh-huh. And then my father was a martial artist. He has 6 black belts. So he taught me. I was actually more specialized in Chinese grappling.
Wow, I'll mess with you.
So then I haven't practiced in a couple of years.
It would be awesome if I throw you over the piano right now and slam.
Yeah, we could spar on during an interview. That'd be interesting.
To close the interview.
Right. But that's interesting. So you studied martial arts for 14 years, and
the past 14 years, 14 years, was very focused on Taekwondo. And the funny thing is, my uncle did not approve, not that I really cared, but he said, you're Chinese, why are you practicing Taekwondo? And I said, we're one, remember? But, the thing was, as soon as I got my yellow stripe, just a few months in, I was practicing every day, like the way you were with piano, completely obsessed. And I ran, and I got my yellow stripe, and my uncle was trying to attack me. I was 17, 18 years old, and he said, I'm sure you don't know what you're doing, you're just a yellow stripe. And he was right. And he trying to throw a punch at me for fun. And I did, I picked up my knee, just one of my knees, and he punched right into my knee and broke his little pinky finger. And I know this is a story I haven't told on the podcast yet, but I recently got my 3rd degree black belt. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And it's very special, even though just by number, I'm not just going for the ranks, but what you said just now about your practice, it was so interesting because that's exactly how I was taught or how we practice the forms. As you know, in Tai Chi forms, sometimes there are 120, 150 moves, just like your music. Whereas in Taekwondo, the more sophisticated forms, or could be, honestly, I haven't counted, could be
maybe like
50, 60, 70, right? And typically it's not over 100, but it's so fascinating. My instructor, Mr. O'Malley, I watched him practice his forms, and the way he taught me was, he watches me, he's like, stop. You always start from the beginning to finish, right? And if you watch anyone, the second half of their forms are significantly less well constructed than the first half. They're tired, and they're always, in the middle. When it comes to tricky with Taekwondo, you could do a turning flying side kick, and there's a wheel kick. The form I'm working on is Moo. It's very advanced, but you, instead of just throw a side kick in the air, you gotta hold it there. You gotta turn with one foot. So you need flexibility, but also sort of stamina and like strength. And you typically have one or not both, but either way, the power of breaking down the form of your music to practice individually, it is so powerful. Anyway, I cannot start talking about Taekwondo, and then we'll break into like 10th episode. But we've been talking for a while. This is fascinating. I wanna thank you, because one of my dreams was to say, one day when I have enough money, you know what, that's actually a wrong excuse, is I want to be able to travel around the world, but not just travel. I want to experience every profession out there. I could probably do that in the US. It's a big country, and my dream is to sit down for one day or possibly 1 or 2 weeks, to sit down with a piano player, with a basketball player, or out of the sports realm, martial artist, or a marketer, an advertiser, whatever that may be, and just experience like what they do, how they practice, and when do they put on a show. And it's awesome. But before we close the podcast, I wanted to ask a sort of business related question, which is, I feel like at some point, especially musicians or artists, to say, look, I'm gonna have a family as a man or a woman, right? Look, I'm not saying I need $10 million or anything extravagant, but I need to be able to get by.
Right.
And recently, I really opened that up, because working in advertising myself, my mind is filled with all these opportunities, the way to market yourself.
Yeah.
My mom's an artist. She's like, I hate that. She's like, I hate marketing. I hate marketing myself.
Right. Everything's about your work, right? It's
somebody else do it.
Right. Somebody else do it.
But
yeah, I think there is this thinking that that if you're the artist, you just have to work on your art form, and somebody will, hold your hand and walk you through. But the thing is, all the most successful musicians, this was never the case. Now, I have to admit, there is some element of luck. There always is. But that's not always the case. People forget that, Beethoven, when he premiered the Ninth Symphony, he had to knock on a lot, and he was deaf at this point, completely deaf. He had to knock on a lot of people's doors just to get music stands for the musicians. He had to find bows for the violinists. He had, he organized the entire concert by himself. Probably the most important symphony in classical music history was done by a man who was very entrepreneurial in that sense. Many of these classical greats had to find ways to support themselves. I mean, Chopin, for instance, made a living not through his compositions. He made a living through teaching. And he had a very, very, very prestigious teaching studio. And he created a demand that allowed him to charge at very exorbitant rates to support his living. And so we forget, as artists, that, hey, they're great artists, but they also had that same thinking. I have to have a family, I want to make a living, I don't want to be poor. And so I guess the advice for today is treat your career as an entrepreneurship endeavor, and don't once think that just because you're not performing at Carnegie Hall or at Lincoln Center that you're a failure. That's not true. The real failure is if you're not doing anything. And you find ways to get a career going. There's a lot of artists that make fun of Long Long, for instance, because they call him a sellout. He does all these commercials. He does all this stuff for Mont Blanc or Audi. But let's face the facts. He makes a couple, I think they estimated $20 million a year. He has an extravagant lifestyle. He is on the pop media. He plays in the Beijing Olympic opening ceremony. But he does all of that to get his name out there. But then when he records a CD or he plays at a prestigious concert hall, he is a serious musician. Right? You have to wear different hats. And I'm not saying you have to wear different hats to be like Two-Face Harvey, from Batman. But you have to wear different hats to find your niche. right? Because, you know, like an advertisement, right? You need to hit a certain demographic. You need to sell them a product. Say, for example, you need to sell, you know, a car that's geared towards college graduates in Boston from the ages of 22 to 27. And so you need to figure out, well, what can I do to make them want to buy this car? That's what you have to do as a musician. Now, I'm not saying you should do that with your music, but you should do that with the way you market yourself as a brand, as a product. So, you know, even though, yeah, the average salary of a musician in the United States is $23,000 a year, it's absurdly low. But if you're smart and you work hard and you treat yourself as an entrepreneur instead of just an artist, a lot of opportunities start opening up. And, you know, that's the advice, actually, Mr. Alexander and Mr. Bonois give me. And they actually have this wonderful book. And if you're listening and you are an aspiring musician, you should at least give it a look. It's called The Classical Musician Today. And that book really asks you these hard questions, but it guides you in a way to think of your career more of as an entrepreneur, as a Mark Zuckerberg, rather than as just, you know, a Yandili, you know, just a musician.
You have a very visible and a very well done internet presence of you, and meaning the places I've looked so far. You know, your website is very professionally done.
Thank you.
I like it. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be perfect. That's not the idea for people out there.
It's hard to make anything perfect, right?
Right, exactly. Even as a musician, to get something out there,
right.
Convincing the audience to get something up and running, and don't be embarrassed by it. If you feel embarrassed, go to a very smart professor's website. Any university professor have decided unanimously that they do not need anything other than 8 simple, straight-up HTML. You probably noticed
right.
that. But your Facebook fans, and you're probably on Twitter. I haven't looked.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
Where else are you on? Just kind of give our audience a way to follow you and to know how you conduct your business.
Right, so I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/GeorgeCoMusic. My website is georgecopiano.com. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/GeorgeCoPiano. I'm also on Twitter @GeorgeCoPiano. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So those are my main social networks. I'm probably going to start Instagram soon just because I love taking pictures of food. And actually have a food blog just for fun.
Oh, what is it?
It's called Co-Kitchen, so you can go to cokitchen.com. And I like to cook, so I post photos of what I like to cook. It's just a little fun thing. But yeah, so actually with all the web presence, speaking as an entrepreneur, I did all of that on my own. I didn't hire anyone to do it for me. And I actually I interned at an ad agency in high school called Superfad. And I helped create commercials for Coca-Cola and Sprite. So I got to see that kind of the world, and with the background and training my father gave me through his business, you know, I was able to kind of piece everything together. And I have a brother who's a whiz at computer science and engineering, and he's also at Harvard. And
wow, is he younger or?
He's younger and brighter. You know, yeah, he's in Adam's house. He's since I took a year off, we're now both juniors. And yeah, so we're gonna graduate at the same time, but it's great. He's my best friend, and so it's it'll be fun. But yeah, so you know, he helped me with some of the coding, and yeah, I really just did everything on my own.
I love where you're going with this, because so many people out there think it's an excuse that I'm not a computer scientist, I'm not a mathematician, I cannot do this. You can always do this. There is no better era than now to do all of these things.
Yeah, and I think actually, what?
I'm just saying, even with the smartphone,
yeah.
You can take pictures, you can advertise yourself, share your ideas.
Yeah, like so for some of the recordings I've done it myself. You know, I have a Pro Tools system at home. I was also very lucky. I was trained by a recording engineer, Nico Bolas at Capitol Records, and so he taught me how to mic a piano. You know, I learned. You know, and you can go on Amazon right now, buy a Zoom H4n for $220 and get a pretty decent recording of yourself. You know, you could, you know, all of the photos on my website were done by myself. You know, it's It can be done, and there's thousands, millions of tutorials on YouTube. You know, how to build a website. I mean, you can go on. I mean, it sounds like I'm plugging for products right now, but
no,
there's a great website company called Squarespace, and it's completely drag and drop. Just drag and drop everything, and you can build a website. I did everything on WordPress just because there's a template I liked, and then I did some of my own code. Yeah, I mean, there's just a bunch of free services that you can do, and it's so easy to get a website now. Just go on GoDaddy, and actually, don't go on GoDaddy now. Go on Google. Google has a new domain site, and you can buy a website, set it up in less than. I built my website in about 3 hours.
Wow.
And so anyone can do it. It's you're absolutely right, and I think this is the perfect time actually to be a musician because. There's so many things you can do, and think of ways to, change the way you perform. Like I'm working on a project to perform, hopefully at a, either a car dealership or I'm a big fan of Leica, and so one of my things is I'd like to perform at a Leica store, and fortunately as a Steinway artist I can have Steinway send a piano and you can do an event for Steinway and Leica but play some classical music, so think of ways to get your music out there, and it doesn't always have to be at a concert hall.
So true. It could be on YouTube. I mean, all these opportunities to kind of broadcast yourself like what we're doing right now. It's really amazing, and especially I think piano music in general is really good for podcasting, and you can talk about your music, share your emotions, and I love what you did, bits and pieces, and really added a significant dimension to the podcast instead of just two people talking back and forth with one another. It's really amazing. So wow, what's your next steps? What do you want to do, like, say 10 years from now? Is it playing, supporting, coaching other musicians, or what does that trajectory look right now?
Yeah, so actually I wrote this in my college essay to Harvard. There is a decline of classical music. It's very sad in this country. There are less people going to the concert halls. I mean, when you walk into Boston Symphony Hall, the average age is 60. It's very real. And progressively, in 20 years, there'll be no audience. So what are you going to do? If I'm a classical musician, I don't want to play for no one. I mean, unfortunately, the reality is I do need to make a living. I need to put food on the table. But more importantly, we're going to lose this appreciation for this wonderful art form. So my dream is to work with the U.S. government and the White House to create a task force to help reinstitute all the music appreciation programs in every public school in this country. And in the 50s, there was a music appreciation class in all these schools. And those are the people that are sitting in the audiences today, the people that benefited from this wonderful public education system that has now just been crippled with bad debt, unnecessary resources and spending. These schools have to cut all their artistic programs just to get teachers to come teach not even 5 classes a day. And so, I would love to work with the government to see if there's a way we can get these programs back, get these artistic teachers back, and inspire these children to keep playing their instruments, and to sponsor local orchestras and community orchestras that these students can perform in, and show them that this is music worth looking at, this is music worth playing and enjoying. I conducted a youth orchestra during my year off in Orange County, and I was asked to conduct a bunch of 1st to 5th graders. And can you imagine, you have to try to inspire the most energetic group of people in the entire world to play slow music, slower music. I mean, we were playing Ravel, and but I treated it as a way of accomplishing something. And when we played the piece and we finally performed, every child had a smile on their face, and they were so excited, and they were so pumped to practice to do the next big show. And then I realized something. It's not classical music is boring or it's dead or it's not interesting or pop music is easier to consume. It's just we never gave it a chance. That's really what it is. And so if I can some way in my life help bring these programs back, to help give people a chance to at least, open the cover of this wonderful book, that would be the ultimate goal for my career. So
you'll be the next Jamie Oliver. You like cooking, you must know who he is.
Yeah.
He brought fresh food to local schools.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so much of what he does that I love, and but what you're doing, it's almost more significant. I mean, it's just as significant, it's really incredible, and I feel very blessed to have you on my show. And
it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was so much fun, and really best of luck to all your endeavors. And keep me posted. Keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and see how it goes. And it'll be awesome to have a follow-up to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. To listen to more episodes of the Feisworld podcast, please subscribe on iTunes or visit feisworld.com. That is FEISWORLD, where you can find show notes, links, other tools, and resources. You can also follow me on Twitter at Feisworld. Until next time, thanks for listening.